Andre Cullen thought his biggest problem would be paying off his new SUV, until his HOA neighbor accused him of theft, called the cops, and nearly destroyed his reputation. The sun was dipping low over Plano, Texas, washing the cul-de-sac in gold, when Andre Cullen eased his 2021 Ford Explorer into the driveway. It should have been the kind of quiet Saturday where he parked the car, stepped inside, and grilled dinner for his kids. Instead, it became the night his own driveway turned into a stage for chaos. The garage door rumbled open, and Andre guided the SUV inside, feeling the satisfaction of owning something he had worked toward for years. He had picked up extra shifts, skipped vacations, even cut back on small comforts just to save up for this car. To anyone else, it was just a vehicle. To him, it was proof that persistence paid off. But before the engine could even cool, a sharp voice pierced the air. Excuse me, what do you think you're doing with that car?" It was Cheryl Danvers, storming across the street in a floral blouse and clutching her phone like a weapon. Cheryl wasn't just a neighbor. She was the self-appointed watchdog of the Homeowners Association. People in the neighborhood joked that she treated the HOA rulebook like scripture. But this time, there was nothing funny about the way she marched straight toward Andre's garage. Andre killed the engine, stepped out, and wiped his hands on his jeans. "Evening, Cheryl." Just pulling in like everyone else. "That's not your vehicle," she snapped, eyes narrowing. "I know for a fact it was listed in last month's auction. I placed a bid myself. Don't think you can just steal something and slap on some fake police stickers to cover your tracks." Andre blinked, trying to process the words. "This car is mine. I've got the paperwork right inside the house." Cheryl jabbed a finger at the reflective strips and magnetic decals neatly stacked against the garage wall. "You even tried to make it look like a police car. You're impersonating law enforcement, and you're driving a car that belongs to me." Andre's stomach sank, not out of guilt, but out of disbelief. His two kids, Maya and Jordan, stood at the doorway of the house, wide-eyed. Jordan clutched the doorframe, whispering, "Dad, what's happening?" Andre raised a calming hand toward them. "Go inside, kids. Everything's fine." But his heart was already racing. He could see how this would look to an outsider, a woman shouting theft, stickers and decals sitting nearby, and him, standing in the middle of it all with a confused look on his face. Then Cheryl did the one thing he dreaded. She dialed 911. "Hello?" "Yes, I need police here right now. A man has stolen my vehicle. He's pretending to be an officer, and he refuses to give me back what's mine." Her voice echoed down the street, sharp and frantic. A curtain twitched across the way as neighbors peeked out. One by one, doors opened and people stepped onto porches. The scene was no longer private. It was a spectacle. Andre walked a few steps closer, keeping his tone steady. "Cheryl, you need to stop. You're making a mistake." She held up her free hand like a traffic cop, refusing to listen. "Stay where you are. The police will sort this out. I knew something was off about you the day you moved in." That cut deep. Andre had lived here for 5 years. He'd coached youth soccer, shoveled snow for elderly neighbors, even organized last year's block barbecue. But all of that vanished in the shadow of her accusation. 5 minutes later, the sound of sirens rolled in from a distance. Andre's chest tightened as flashing red and blue lights spilled across the cul-de-sac. 3 patrol cars pulled up, and officers stepped out, hands near their holsters. "Sir, step away from the vehicle," one of them ordered. Andre glanced back at his kids, who were now crying in the doorway, and then back at the officers. He raised his hands slightly. "This is my car. I can prove it. Please, just let me show you the papers." Cheryl darted forward, pointing wildly. "There. That's him. He stole my car and turned it into a fake police SUV. Arrest him before he runs." The officer's eyes flicked between Andre, the SUV, and Cheryl. Confusion rippled through the growing crowd of neighbors. Some whispered. Others filmed on their phones. Victor Ramirez, the mechanic across the street, stepped closer. He called out, "I helped him put those decals on." "That's his car, and I've worked under the hood myself." "You've got the wrong story." But the officers still moved cautiously, hands resting on their belts, unsure who to believe. Andre swallowed hard. His pulse pounded in his ears. This was no longer just a ridiculous accusation. It was a situation that could turn dangerous in seconds, depending on who the officers trusted. He took a slow breath, keeping his voice level. Everything you need to see is inside my house. Title, insurance, the bill of sale. Let me show you. Please. The air felt heavy. The neighbors waited. The kids cried. The flashing lights washed across garage doors. And Andre stood in the middle of it all, caught between truth and a lie, shouted loud enough to almost make it real. But the night was only just beginning, and what came after would tear open secrets this neighborhood never wanted revealed. The officers fanned out across the driveway, their flashlights darting over the SUV's reflective strips and the small dash light perched behind the windshield. The air was tense, thick enough that every word carried weight. One of the officers, a tall man with a steady voice, stepped forward. "Sir, can you state your name?" Andre lowered his hands slightly, still careful. "Andre Callen. I live here. That's my car, parked in my own garage." Before he could say more, Cheryl cut in, her voice sharp and cracking. "Don't listen to him. He's lying. That's my vehicle. I placed a bid for it at an auction last month, and he's pretending it's his. Look at those fake decals. Who does that unless they're trying to impersonate police?" Andre clenched his jaw, frustration bubbling. "They're not fake. I volunteer for the neighborhood watch. I use them when I'm helping with patrols. Ask anyone here," Victor called out again from across the street. "It's true!" I helped him with the setup. "Those aren't permanent, just magnets." The officer raised his hand, silencing them both. "Mr. Callen, do you have proof of ownership on you right now?" Andre gestured toward the house. "Yes. Title, registration, insurance, all in my name. They're inside." "I can get them if you let me." Cheryl's face twisted with disbelief. "Don't let him back in the house. He'll hide evidence, shred papers, whatever he needs to cover this up. I know how people like him operate." The remark stung. Andre didn't miss the way her voice dripped with contempt, the way her words weren't just about the car but about him. He glanced at the officers, searching for any sign of judgment. "Ma'am," the officer said firmly. "We'll handle this. Step back." But Cheryl didn't move. She kept her phone pressed to her ear, narrating everything to the dispatcher as if the officers in front of her weren't already there. "Yes, they're here now. He's standing by the car. Don't let him escape. He looks dangerous." Andre's daughter, Maya, whimpered from the doorway. "Daddy, they think you're bad." That broke something inside him. He turned, softening his voice. "No, sweetheart. I'm not in trouble. I promise." The officer caught the exchange, his posture easing slightly. "Mr. Callen, I'm going to need to see those papers. If you can walk with me, we'll verify this right now." Andre nodded. "Of course." But Cheryl exploded again, rushing forward. "Don't fall for it. He's smooth-talking you. You'll regret it if you let him fool you." Another officer stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, enough. If you don't calm down, we'll have to separate you." Her eyes blazed, but she backed up, muttering under her breath about conspiracies and stolen property. Andre led the officer toward the front door, where Jordan clung to his leg. "Stay with your sister," Andre whispered, giving him a reassuring squeeze before disappearing inside. Moments later, he returned with a stack of papers. The bill of sale, the registration, the title with his name printed clearly. He held them out with steady hands. "Here, every document you need." The officer flipped through them carefully, shining his light over the signatures and seals. He glanced at his partner, gave a small nod, then turned back to Andre. "These look legitimate." Andre let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. But before relief could settle, Cheryl launched another tirade. "Those are forged. Don't you see? He probably printed them on his computer. He's clever like that." "You can't just take this at face value," Victor groaned from the sidewalk. "Cheryl, enough. You've been riding people for years with your nonsense. The car is his. You're embarrassing yourself." But she doubled down, her voice rising. "You're all blind. He's tricking the whole neighborhood. First the car, then what? Pretending to be police? Pulling people over? I won't stand for it." Andre met her eyes, tired but unwavering. "You've gone too far, Cheryl. You scared my kids. You dragged my name through the mud. For what? A story you made up?" The officer stepped between them, cutting off the exchange. Mr. Callan, for now, your paperwork checks out. We'll run the VIN to confirm ownership in our system. As for you, ma'am, you'll need to file an official complaint if you believe you have a claim. But I'll tell you now, what I'm seeing doesn't support your accusations. Cheryl's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. But it didn't stop her from muttering, "You'll regret ignoring me. You'll all regret it." Andre turned away, ushering his kids inside, his chest tight with exhaustion. The flashing lights began to fade as the officers wrapped up, but the knot in his stomach stayed. He knew this wasn't over. Cheryl wasn't the type to back down, even when she was wrong. But what Andre didn't know yet was that this false accusation was only the beginning, and soon the cracks in the neighborhood's foundation would expose something far darker. The officers lingered longer than Andre wanted. Even with his documents in hand and the VIN running clean through the system, their stance stayed cautious. It wasn't hostility, it was procedure. But procedure felt like a noose when you were the one being accused. Andre stood in the driveway, arms folded, kids huddled inside the doorway, neighbors gathering in hushed clusters on their lawns. The red and blue glow washed over their faces, and every whisper felt like judgment. "Mr. Callan," one officer said finally, lowering his flashlight, "everything you've shown us checks out. The car is registered to you. There's no indication it was stolen." Before Andre could thank him, Cheryl erupted again, her voice raw with desperation. "You can't just take his word for it. He's lying, I'm telling you. He's been plotting this for weeks. I saw him sneaking around the garage at night. That's not normal." Victor Ramirez had heard enough. He crossed the street, wiping grease from his hands onto his work pants. "Sneaking? Cheryl, he's fixing his car. That's what people do. You've seen me over here helping him. Don't pretend like you didn't." Cheryl spun toward Victor, her face flushed. "Oh, you're part of this too, aren't you? Covering for him because you think no one will question a mechanic. You should be ashamed." Andre sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Cheryl, you're embarrassing yourself. Everyone here knows the truth. The car is mine. The police just confirmed it, but she wasn't backing down. She stepped closer, her finger pointed like a blade. You don't deserve to be here. You don't respect this neighborhood, and now you're threatening it with your lies and your fake little police act." Andre's chest tightened. He wanted to shout back, to unleash everything boiling inside, but he caught sight of his daughter clutching her brother's arm in the doorway. Their fear kept him steady. The officer's patience finally snapped. "Ma'am, if you continue to disrupt, we'll have to issue a citation for filing a false report and interfering with our work. You've made your statement. We've investigated. The matter is closed." That silenced her. For a moment. She crossed her arms, seething, muttering under her breath about conspiracies and cover-ups. The officers pulled Andre aside, their tone softening. "Look, we deal with disputes like this more often than you'd think. Some neighbors abuse the system. She's one of them. You've handled yourself calmly, and that's why this didn't escalate further. But you should be prepared. People like her don't usually stop after one call." Andre nodded, his throat tight. "I've got kids. I can't have them growing up watching police pull into our driveway every time she makes up a story." The officer offered a sympathetic look. "Document everything. If she keeps harassing you, file your own complaint. Tonight, though, you're in the clear." They shook his hand, gave one last glance at the SUV, and began packing up. The crowd of neighbors slowly dispersed, though a few lingered with worried looks. As the patrol cars pulled away, Victor clapped a hand on Andre's shoulder. "She's lost it, man. You don't deserve this." Andre exhaled. "I just wanted to park my car. That's all." From across the street, Cheryl's voice cut through the fading night. "This isn't over, Andre." "I'll get the truth out, one way or another." Andre locked eyes with her. For a second he wondered if she believed her own lies, or if this was about something bigger than a car. Inside, the kids clung to him, their small bodies trembling. "Daddy, is she going to take your car?" Jordan asked, his voice muffled in Andre's shirt. Andre hugged him tight. "No, she can't, because the truth doesn't change, no matter how loud someone yells." He tried to sound confident, but a quiet doubt gnawed at him. He knew Cheryl wasn't done. And he knew, deep down, this neighborhood had secrets that went far beyond her shouting. Later that night, when the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Andre sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water, staring at the stack of documents. Proof of ownership, proof of stability, proof that he had nothing to hide. But proof didn't matter to people who thrived on chaos. And Cheryl thrived on it. Andre picked up his phone, hesitated, then dialed his sister, Monique Callan. She answered groggily. "Andre, what's wrong?" "I need your help," he said. His voice cracked, and he hated that it did. "Cheryl called the cops on me tonight, said I stole my own car. I showed them the papers, but this isn't going to stop." There was a pause. Then Monique's voice sharpened. "Tell me everything." So he did. Every detail. The shouting, the 911 call, the flashing lights, the neighbors watching like it was a show. And as he talked, Monique grew quiet. When he finished, she said, "This isn't just about her being dramatic. She's playing a bigger game. Let me dig. I want to know what she's really after." Andre rubbed his temples. "You think there's more?" "I think there always is," Monique replied. Andre stared out the window, across the street where Cheryl's house sat dark and still. His gut told him Monique was right, but neither of them could have guessed just how deep the rot went, or how far Cheryl was willing to go to protect the people pulling her strings. The next morning, Andre woke up with the weight of the night still pressing on his chest. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, but it did nothing to settle him. His kids were unusually quiet, their cereal bowls pushed aside half-eaten. Maya traced circles on the table with her spoon, while Jordan stared blankly at the cartoons playing on the TV. Andre crouched beside them. "Hey, last night was a mess. But listen to me. That car is ours. Nobody can take it from us. Do you understand?" Jordan whispered. "But the police came." Andre's throat tightened. "They came because someone lied. But lies don't win forever." He kissed their heads and forced a smile, though inside he felt like he was walking on a tightrope. By noon, Monique was at his door. Dressed in jeans and a blazer, she had her laptop bag slung over her shoulder and a no-nonsense look in her eyes. "All right, big brother. Let's talk about Cheryl." Andre let her in, shaking his head. "She stood in my driveway, screaming that I stole my own car. If Victor hadn't spoken up, I don't know how bad it could have gotten." Monique set her bag down and opened her laptop. "I started looking into her last night after you called. And you're right. This isn't just about you. She's filed at least 3 police complaints against neighbors in the last 2 years. 2 of those were black men who lived here before you." Andre stiffened. "And what happened to them?" "One moved out 6 months later. The other sold his house within the year." Monique looked up. "Patterns like that don't happen by chance. She's using the system to drive people out." Andre sat back, stunned. "And Douglas?" Monique tapped her keyboard, pulling up emails she'd already printed. "Your HOA president, Douglas Keaton, is connected to her. She sends him emails about residents she doesn't trust. He responds by issuing fines, violation notices, sometimes for ridiculous things like leaving trash cans out for an extra hour. I think they're working together." Andre rubbed his forehead. "For what?" "What's the end game?" Monique leaned in. "Money. If people get frustrated enough, they move. When they do, the HOA board steers buyers and sellers toward certain real estate groups tied to Douglas. It's a pipeline. The more turnover, the more profit." Andre sat silent for a moment, the weight of it sinking in. "So this wasn't just about me parking my car. She wanted to start something that could snowball." "Exactly," Monique said. "But she picked the wrong person this time. You've got proof, documents, witnesses, everything." Just then, a knock at the door interrupted them. Andre's chest tensed, but it was only Victor, holding a thermos of coffee. "Thought you could use this," he said. Andre invited him in, and Victor pulled up a chair at the table. "I don't know if you saw, but folks around the block are talking. Some people think Cheryl lost it. Others, well, you know how rumors spread." Andre clenched his fists. "Rumors about what?" "That maybe you did something shady," Victor admitted. "Look, I don't believe it for a second, but people love gossip more than truth," Monique cut in. "That's why we fight this with facts." Andre's got the paperwork. You, as a witness, confirm the decals. We put it all on the record. The police already ran the VIN and cleared him. She doesn't have a leg to stand on. Victor nodded. Then maybe it's time to show the neighborhood what's really going on. People should know what Cheryl and Douglas are up to. Andre hesitated. You think anyone will listen? Victor leaned forward. They saw the lights last night. They heard her screaming. They're already paying attention. Now's the time to set the record straight before she poisons the well. Andre looked at Monique, who gave a firm nod. He's right. We'll gather everything. Emails, your documents, witnesses. If she tries this again, she won't just be embarrassing herself. She'll be exposing Douglas too. The plan gave Andre a flicker of hope. For the first time since the ordeal began, he felt like he wasn't just reacting. He was preparing. Still, doubt lingered. He knew Cheryl wouldn't go quietly, and Douglas, with his polished charm and grip on the HOA, was the kind of man who could twist facts to his advantage. Later that evening, Andre stepped outside to take the trash out. Across the street, Cheryl stood in her yard, arms crossed, watching him with a look that sent a shiver down his back. She didn't say a word, but the message was clear. This wasn't over. Andre turned, jaw tight, and carried the trash can to the curb. His resolve hardened. If she wanted a fight, he'd give her one, but with truth on his side. But while Andre was ready to defend himself, Monique was about to uncover something in Douglas's records that would turn a neighborhood squabble into a scandal reaching far beyond their street. 2 days later, Monique sat at her dining room table surrounded by printouts, sticky notes, and her open laptop. Her investigative instincts had kicked in full force. Years of paralegal work meant she knew how to follow paper trails, and something about Cheryl's obsession with Andre's car felt less like a neighborly feud and more like a lever in a much bigger machine. When Andre arrived, she pushed a stack of papers toward him. You need to see this. Andre dropped into a chair, still wearing his work shirt from the logistics center. He glanced at the pile. What am I looking at? Emails, Monique said, tapping one page. Cheryl has been sending Douglas reports on neighbors for years. Everything from lawn lengths to who parks where. But it's not just nagging. Look closer. Andre scanned the text. Cheryl's words were sharp, judgmental, and almost paranoid. Andre Callan has suspicious decals in his garage. Possible impersonation. Investigate ownership of vehicle. Another one read, Property at 223 Maplewood should be flagged for repeated trash violations. Owner is combative and untrustworthy. Andre exhaled sharply. She's cataloging people like she's running an investigation. Monique nodded. And Douglas responds every time. He threatens fines, sends violation letters. People either pay up or leave. It's a system. Andre leaned back, rubbing his face. Victor was right. This isn't about me. It's about control. They're using the HOA like a weapon. Before Monique could reply, Andre's phone buzzed. It was Victor. He put it on speaker. Hey, Andre, Victor's voice crackled. You might want to know. Cheryl's been walking around the block all morning telling anyone who'll listen that you forged your car documents. Says the police are investigating you for impersonating an officer. Andre's stomach dropped. That's a flat-out lie. I know, Victor said. But people hear it enough. They'll start wondering. I've already had 2 neighbors ask me if it's true. I told them straight it's not, but she's poisoning the well. Monique's eyes hardened. She's escalating. Which means Douglas will too. They're counting on you folding under pressure. Andre clenched his fists. Not happening. Later that evening, Andre walked the block to clear his head. Whispers followed him, neighbors talking in low tones that stopped when he passed. A couple, the Millers, gave him a hesitant smile but quickly retreated inside. Another neighbor avoided eye contact altogether. Finally, Mrs. Tran, an older woman who had lived there for decades, waved him over. Andre, come here. He approached cautiously. I don't believe her, she said firmly. Cheryl's been causing problems since before you moved here. She tried the same nonsense with the Johnsons, accused them of running a daycare without a license because their grandkids visited often. They left within months. Don't let her scare you. Andre felt a small swell of gratitude. Thank you, Mrs. Tran. That means a lot. She patted his arm. Stand tall. People like her only win when others stay quiet. Her words echoed in his mind as he walked back. He knew Monique was right. This wasn't just about defending his name. It was about stopping a cycle. That night, Monique called again, her voice buzzing with urgency. "Andre, you won't believe this. I dug into Douglas's financial records. Guess what I found?" Andre sank into a chair. "What?" "He's been diverting HOA funds. Not huge amounts at once. Small transfers over years. But it adds up. Tens of thousands. And here's the kicker. The real estate company he works with. His brother-in-law owns it. They profit off every turnover in this neighborhood." Andre's jaw tightened. So Cheryl feeds him targets. He pressures them with violations. People sell. They cash in. "Exactly," Monique said. "And your car?" "It was just the excuse she needed to start the process with you." Andre was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "We need to expose this. Not just for me. For everyone." Monique's voice softened. "That's what I was hoping you'd say." Andre stood, looking out the window at Cheryl's house across the street, its blinds pulled tight. He could almost feel her watching. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, tired but determined. This wasn't just about saving face anymore. This was about fighting corruption that had festered for years, hidden behind HOA letterheads and fine print. But while Andre and Monique planned their next steps, Douglas was already moving to tighten his grip, and the first move would come faster and hit harder than Andre ever expected. 2 nights later, Andre's phone buzzed at 10:47 p.m. He almost ignored it, thinking it was just a late-night text from work, but the caller ID made his stomach flip. It was Monique. He answered on the first ring. "What's going on?" Her voice was low but urgent. "Andre, I think I've got him. Douglas isn't just skimming HOA money. He's laundering it." Andre sat up straighter on the couch. "What are you talking about?" Monique shuffled papers, the faint hum of her printer in the background. "He's funneling money through HOA accounts into shell companies. They look like they're for maintenance projects, landscaping, security upgrades, but none of those companies exist. I cross-checked their registrations with the Secretary of State's office. Empty names, empty addresses." Andre ran his hand down his face. "And no one noticed? That's the brilliance of it," Monique said. "He keeps the numbers small. A few thousand here, 5,000 there. But over 6 years, it adds up to nearly 500,000. Andre let out a sharp breath. 500,000? While he's hassling me over parking my car in my own garage? Monique's tone hardened. "That's exactly why." Cheryl stirs the pot. Douglas applies pressure. Residents sell or cave, and while everyone's distracted, he's bleeding the HOA dry. Andre stood and paced the living room. "This has to go public. People need to know." Before Monique could respond, his doorbell rang. Andre froze. Through the peephole, he saw Victor standing on the porch, his face tense. Andre opened the door. "Everything okay?" Victor stepped in quickly, glancing over his shoulder before closing the door behind him. "Not really. Look, I don't want to freak you out, but I saw Douglas at Cheryl's place tonight. They weren't just chatting. They were arguing. And then I caught my name. I think I'm next on their list." Andre frowned. "What did you hear?" "Cheryl was saying she had proof I was running an illegal repair business out of my garage." "Proof. Only problem? I don't run a business. I just fix cars for friends." "It's a hobby," Monique, still on speaker, jumped in. "They're using the same playbook. Accuse, harass, intimidate. If it worked before, they'll keep doing it." Victor sank into a chair, rubbing his forehead. "I can't afford a legal fight. My wife's already on edge. If they push this, she'll want us gone." Andre's fists tightened. "That's exactly what they want. But we're not giving them another win." The room was silent for a beat, the weight of the corruption pressing down on all 3 of them. Then Monique's voice sharpened again. "Andre, you remember the town council meetings Dad used to take us to when we were kids? The open comment sessions?" Andre nodded slowly. "Yeah, why?" "Because that's where this gets exposed. Public record, cameras rolling. Once it's on tape, Douglas can't bury it. And if I file a report with the State Attorney General's office, they'll have no choice but to investigate." Victor's eyes widened. You're serious? You think they'll listen? Monique replied without hesitation. They'll have to. I've got the emails, the shell companies, the bank records. It's enough to crack this wide open. Andre's pulse quickened. For weeks he'd been cornered, reacting to lies. Now, for the first time, there was a way to fight back. But before the flicker of hope could settle, headlights swept across his living room window. A car idled outside for a long moment before pulling away slowly. Andre's jaw clenched. Someone's watching, he said quietly. Victor stood, peering through the blinds. That was Douglas's Lexus. He's circling the block. Monique cursed softly over the phone. He knows you're not folding. He's trying to scare you. Andre swallowed hard. Well, it's not working. But even as he said it, his hands trembled slightly. Later that night, Andre sat at the kitchen table with Monique's documents spread out in front of him. Photos of checks, copies of emails, spreadsheets highlighting missing funds. The truth was in black and white. He whispered to himself, they wanted me to be the distraction. But now they're the ones exposed. And for the first time since that awful Saturday in his driveway, Andre felt something stronger than fear. Resolve. But as Monique prepared to go public, Douglas wasn't about to sit back and let his empire crumble without a fight. And his next move would drag the entire neighborhood into the spotlight. By the time Friday rolled around, the neighborhood felt like a kettle about to boil over. Word of Cheryl's 911 call had spread beyond Maplewood Drive. Someone's phone video of the flashing lights and her shouting made its way onto Facebook. Within hours, the clip was shared across local groups in Collin County. By the next morning, a Dallas news station ran a segment. HOA dispute leads to false police call. Andre saw it while grabbing coffee before work. His face flashed across the screen, standing beside his SUV, officers in the background. His heart dropped. Local father accused of vehicle theft in his own driveway, the reporter said, her tone caught somewhere between serious and sensational. Police confirmed the vehicle was legally purchased, but the incident has raised questions about HOA power and false emergency calls. Andre clicked the TV off and leaned on the counter, head spinning. The last thing he wanted was to be the centerpiece of a scandal. But now, the whole city knew his name. That evening, Monique arrived with her laptop. You're not going to like this, she said, setting it down. She pulled up the HOA's official website. Douglas posted a statement. He says the HOA takes all claims seriously, and while the police cleared you, they'll be conducting their own internal review to ensure community safety. Andre clenched his jaw. So now I'm under investigation by the same people trying to run me out? Victor, who'd joined them for dinner, shook his head. Classic move. They make it look official. People assume where there's smoke, there's fire. Monique folded her arms. Which is why we need to control the narrative. You can't hide from this. The media already has your face. It's time you tell your side of the story. Andre hesitated. I'm not a public speaker. I don't want my kids dragged through this circus. Then talk about the bigger picture, Monique pressed. This isn't just about you. It's about an HOA abusing its power and neighbors being targeted. If you stay silent, Douglas wins. Andre stared at the stack of documents still sitting on his table. The bank transfers, the bogus company names, the damning emails. His gut twisted, but he nodded. Okay, let's do it. The following Sunday, Andre sat on his porch with a local reporter named Kimberly Ortega, her camera crew set up on the lawn. Neighbors peeked out from their blinds as the microphone clipped to his shirt. Mr. Callan, Kimberly began, you've been accused of stealing your own vehicle. Police say the claim was false. Can you tell us what happened that night? Andre kept his voice steady, though his palms were damp. I came home from work. I parked my car in my garage. That's all. Within minutes, my neighbor accused me of theft, called 911, and officers showed up. My kids watched the whole thing from the doorway. They were terrified. Kimberly leaned in slightly. And you believe this wasn't a simple misunderstanding? Andre met her gaze. No. This is part of a pattern. My neighbor, Miss Danvers, has made false complaints before. And the HOA president, Mr. Keaton, has enabled it. I have proof that funds are being misused, and residents are being pressured until they sell their homes. This isn't about my car, it's about corruption." The words hung in the air. Kimberly blinked, surprised at the bluntness, then gestured to her cameraman to keep rolling. When the segment aired that night, Andre's interview ran alongside clips of neighbors sharing their thoughts. Mrs. Tran appeared briefly, saying, "He's a good man. He coaches kids, helps people. He doesn't deserve this." Victor was shown too, defending Andre's ownership of the car. But Cheryl also spoke to the cameras, her voice shrill. "He fooled everyone. Just wait, you'll see the truth. This isn't over." The broadcast ended with Kimberly stating, "Community members have begun calling for transparency in HOA operations, citing concerns of bias and financial mismanagement." The next morning, Andre's phone lit up with messages, old co-workers, extended family, even strangers sending support. But mixed in were threats. "Leave the neighborhood before something happens. You think you're a hero, but you're a liar." Andre sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through them with a hollow expression. Monique placed a hand on his arm. "This is what happens when the truth starts cutting close. Douglas is going to fight back harder." Andre looked out the window at his SUV gleaming in the driveway, his kids' bikes leaning against the garage. He'd always thought of his home as safe. Now it felt like a battleground. But the media spotlight had cracked Douglas's facade, and soon the pressure would force him to make mistakes. Mistakes that would finally reveal just how deep his schemes ran. By Monday evening, the neighborhood was buzzing with tension. Some residents waved at Andre, offering quiet words of encouragement when they thought no one was watching. Others avoided him entirely, as if even being seen on his lawn might get them caught in the storm. Every time Andre stepped outside, he felt the weight of eyes on him. Victor stopped by after work, his expression grim. "You need to see this." He pulled out his phone and handed it over. On the screen was a letter, posted on the HOA's community board. Andre read aloud, his voice sharp with disbelief. "Effective immediately, all residents are reminded that any modifications to vehicles, including decals, reflective tape, or auxiliary lighting, are strictly prohibited without prior HOA approval. Failure to comply may result in fines or suspension of neighborhood privileges." He dropped the phone on the table. "They wrote this because of me." Victor nodded. "And guess who signed it?" Douglas Keaton himself. "He's tightening the screws." Monique, who had joined them for dinner again, tapped her pen against her notebook. "This is a retaliatory move. He's trying to frame you as the rule breaker, not the victim. If you ignore it, he'll fine you. If you comply, he'll claim victory. Either way, you're on the defensive." Andre exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of his nose. "So, what's the play?" Monique leaned forward. "We escalate. File a complaint with the State Attorney General's office. Get the financials on record. Once there's a formal investigation, Douglas can't just shrug this off as neighborhood drama." Before Andre could respond, his phone buzzed again. Another message, this one from an unknown number. "Drop it. Sell the car. Leave. Last warning." Victor read it over his shoulder. "They're threatening you now." Andre's stomach knotted. "Yeah, and they want me scared enough to quit." But instead of folding, something inside him hardened. He turned to Monique. "Do it. File the complaint, and if the state drags its feet, we'll go higher. I'm not letting them bully me out of my own home." Monique nodded, already pulling up forms on her laptop. "Good. Because once this hits official channels, it's not just Douglas's reputation on the line, it's his freedom." Later that night, Andre sat on the porch, the cool air heavy with tension. Across the street, Cheryl's blinds flickered as if someone had been standing there, watching. Andre stared back, unblinking. The next day, Douglas made his first public move. He scheduled an emergency HOA meeting, calling all residents to the community center. The flyer, plastered on every mailbox, read, "Important matters of neighborhood safety and trust. Attendance strongly encouraged." Andre knew exactly what it meant. A stage for Douglas to spin the narrative. When the night came, the center was packed. Folding chairs scraped the floor as residents murmured nervously. Douglas stood at the front in a tailored suit, his smile tight and rehearsed. "Thank you for coming on such short notice," he began, his voice smooth. "Our neighborhood has always been built on trust, safety, and community values. But recent events have raised concerns. False narratives have been circulating, damaging the integrity of this association. I want to set the record straight. Andre sat in the third row, fists clenched. He knew Douglas was talking about him without naming him. Douglas continued, "We cannot allow misinformation to divide us. Vehicle modifications without approval are a clear violation, and impersonating law enforcement, even unintentionally, is a serious matter." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Andre stood abruptly, his chair screeching. "That's enough." Every head turned. "This isn't about decals or rules," Andre said, his voice steady. "This is about power. You and Cheryl have been targeting families in this neighborhood for years, driving them out, profiting off their homes. I have the documents to prove it." Gasps echoed. Cheryl shot up from her chair near the front. "Lies! He's lying! He forged everything!" Andre held up a folder. "Bank transfers. Fake company names. Emails between the two of you. Do you want me to read them out loud?" Douglas's mask slipped for just a second, just long enough for the crowd to catch it. His jaw tightened. His eyes darted toward Cheryl. Monique rose from the back, holding her laptop. "Everything is copied and ready to be sent to the State Attorney General, and if you try to silence us tonight, we'll go to the press tomorrow." The room erupted. Some neighbors shouted for Douglas to explain. Others whispered angrily among themselves. Douglas raised his hands, trying to regain control. "Let's not rush to judgment. These are serious accusations." But the tide had shifted. The confidence that had always carried him was cracking under the weight of suspicion. Andre looked around the room, seeing neighbors who had once avoided his gaze now watching him with curiosity, and maybe even belief. But while the meeting shook Douglas's grip, it also marked the beginning of his retaliation, and Andre would soon find himself pushed into the fight of his life. The community center meeting was supposed to be Douglas's moment of control. Instead, it left him rattled and the neighborhood divided. The very next day, Andre noticed fewer cold stares. Mrs. Tran brought over a basket of spring rolls with a quiet, "You did the right thing." Even the Millers, who had avoided him for weeks, stopped by to say they were sorry for doubting him. But not everyone was convinced. A handful of residents signed a petition circulated by Cheryl, demanding Andre remove his decals and all law enforcement impersonation activities. She carried it door to door like a badge of honor, her voice rising loud enough for Andre to hear from his porch. Victor shook his head when he saw it. "She's desperate. People like that can't admit when they're wrong, so they double down." Andre shrugged, though his chest burned with frustration. "She can circulate petitions all she wants. The truth is already out." What Andre didn't know was that Douglas had called an emergency meeting of the HOA board the very same evening. Behind closed doors, his allies debated whether to stand by him or distance themselves. When Monique caught wind of it through a sympathetic board member, she wasted no time. "Here," she said, shoving a flash drive across Andre's kitchen table. "All the files are on this. Every transfer, every fake company. We're not waiting anymore. I'm sending this to the State Attorney General tonight." Andre hesitated. "Are we ready?" "Once you send it, there's no going back." Monique looked him dead in the eye. "We were ready the moment Cheryl called 911 on you. This stops tonight." She sent the files. 2 days later, the fallout began. Local reporters hounded Douglas for comment, showing up at his house, at his workplace, even outside his daughter's soccer game. "Did you misuse HOA funds? Why are you linked to shell companies in Delaware?" His polished charm crumbled under the camera lights, his answers clipped and evasive. Cheryl tried to defend him, shouting at reporters in her driveway, but her words only added fuel to the fire. Clips of her ranting went viral, labeled "the HOA neighbor from hell." Then came the hammer blow. The Attorney General's office confirmed an active investigation into the Maplewood HOA's finances. The announcement hit local news like a thunderclap. Neighbors who had once shrugged off Andre's warnings now lined up at his door with stories of their own. Bogus fines, harassing letters, intimidation tactics. Victor leaned against Andre's fence one evening, watching the line of residents vent their frustrations. "Looks like people are finally seeing it for what it is." Andre nodded, though his relief was tempered. It's good they're talking, but Douglas isn't going to go quietly. And he was right. That weekend, Douglas released a slickly worded statement online, claiming the investigation was politically motivated and that Andre had weaponized personal grievances to smear the HOA. But the statement backfired. The more he tried to spin, the guiltier he looked. Monique grinned when she saw it. Classic mistake. He's flailing. By Monday, the board had turned on him. Under pressure from residents and terrified of legal liability, they demanded his resignation. When Douglas refused, a vote was held. The tally wasn't even close. He was ousted as HOA president by an overwhelming majority. Cheryl stormed out of the meeting in tears, shouting that everyone would regret betraying her. But no one followed her. Andre sat quietly in the back, his hands folded. He didn't gloat, didn't cheer. He just exhaled, the weight of weeks of tension finally lifting off his shoulders. For the first time, he felt like his kids could step onto the porch without fear. Later that night, Monique clinked her coffee mug against his. You did it. Andre shook his head. We did it, and not just for me. For everyone they pushed out before. Victor raised his glass too, to the truth, and to not letting anyone use fear to control us again. Andre smiled faintly, looking out at his SUV parked proudly in the driveway. It wasn't just a car anymore. It was a reminder that standing firm in the face of lies mattered, that sometimes the smallest battles revealed the deepest truths. But as the dust began to settle, one final step remained. Healing a neighborhood fractured by fear and rebuilding trust in a place where it had been stolen. For weeks, the neighborhood had felt like a battlefield, suspicion in every glance, whispers in every driveway. But now, with Douglas ousted and the Attorney General's investigation moving forward, the air on Maplewood Drive carried something new. Relief. It wasn't instant, and it wasn't complete, but it was real. Andre noticed it first in the little things. Neighbors who once hurried past his house now paused to chat. Mrs. Tran brought over fresh dumplings instead of warnings about HOA letters. Kids rode their bikes up and down the street without their parents pulling them back at the sight of Andre's SUV. The atmosphere was lighter, freer, as though a weight had been lifted from the block. Still, the scars remained. At the next neighborhood gathering, Victor spoke openly. We let people scare us. We stayed quiet while they picked folks off one by one. That stops now. Heads nodded around the circle of folding chairs in the community park. For the first time, residents weren't just attending an HOA meeting, they were shaping their own future. A committee was formed, not of the same recycled names, but of fresh faces. Parents, retirees, even teenagers who wanted to keep track of community projects. Transparency became the new rule. Every expense, every decision, posted online for anyone to see. Andre, though invited to serve as president, declined. I didn't fight this to run the show, he told them. I fought this so no one else would have to. Instead, he volunteered to organize safety patrols the old-fashioned way. Neighbors walking together, keeping watch, no decals or dash lights required. Cheryl, meanwhile, had retreated into silence. Her blinds stayed drawn, her once daily walks replaced by furtive trips to the mailbox. Rumors swirled that she might move, but Andre didn't dwell on it. He had no desire for revenge. Her absence was enough. At home, things finally began to feel normal again. One Saturday afternoon, Andre washed his SUV in the driveway, while Jordan sprayed the hose and Maya scrubbed at the tires with a sponge far too big for her hands. They laughed, water splashing everywhere, the sound carrying across the block like a sign of peace. Victor strolled over with a grin. Looks like you've got a better crew than I ever had in my shop. Andre laughed, shaking his head. They work for popsicles. Hard to beat that rate. For a moment, the chaos of the past month felt far away. Just neighbors, kids, and a warm Texas afternoon. That night, Andre sat on the porch, a glass of sweet tea in his hand. Monique joined him, her laptop closed for once. They watched the sunset streak the sky with oranges and purples. You know, she said softly, most people would have backed down, sold their house, moved on. You didn't. Andre took a slow sip before answering. I thought about it. More than once. But then I saw the kids crying at the door when those police cars pulled up. I saw the fear in their eyes. And I knew I couldn't let them think that's how life works, that someone can lie loud enough to erase the truth. Monique nodded. You gave them more than a car or a house. You gave them an example. Andre leaned back in his chair, the cicadas buzzing in the distance. Yeah. And maybe we gave this neighborhood one too. That if people stand together, the lies don't win. Not in the long run. For the first time in weeks, Andre felt the knot in his chest loosen completely. His home was safe, his family was safe, and his neighbors were finally awake to what had been happening around them. The SUV gleamed in the driveway, no longer a target of suspicion, but a symbol of resilience. To Andre, it wasn't about decals or fines, or even Cheryl's wild accusations anymore. It was about knowing he had stood his ground with nothing more than the truth and the courage to defend it. And as he looked at his kids chasing fireflies across the lawn, he felt certain of one thing. Lies may roar, but truth endures. Always. This story is a reminder for all of us. Stand firm when the odds feel stacked against you. Speak up when silence is easier. Protect what's right, even if you stand alone. Because when you do, others will stand with you. If you've followed Andre's journey and believe in the power of truth over lies, make sure to subscribe. Stories like his matter, and together, we can keep them alive.